welcome to Art of the Village. And today we're going to work with this, a lottery paper that you get from outside the shops or inside the shops. I think Smiths do them. And this was from my local shop. And it's a seemingly rather pointless bit of paper just for filling in with numbers, but it's actually quite interesting. There's quite a lot on there that I could work with. So let's have a think about what we could do with this sheet of paper. Do we just draw on it? Do we cut it up? Do we stick things on it? Let's have a go together. So if you want to get one of these and then come back and replay this video when you have one. Okay. So here's our lottery paper. We've got some black edging and lots of red numbers and red letters down the side. When I first saw it, I was thinking it looked almost like some sort of template for embroidery or something. So I'm thinking it might be quite good fun to stitch into this with some sort of drawing. I've got a couple of them, by the way. It might be useful to have a couple of them. I also thought of these divisions here, and I kept thinking about this idea of almost like windows in a building. And then I thought these could be a bit like tower blocks. So that's what I'm going to start with first. I'm going to do a sort of made up illustration with biro or a fine liner pen to create a sort of tower block idea there. So in fact, I can use, I'll use a biro. So I've got my biro and I'm just going to dive straight in. I'm going to make this into a sort of cityscape. So I'm just going to start by delineating some buildings. They don't all have to be the same shape. You can have some that are smaller than others, some that are taller than others, some that are like mosque-like roofs or churches. Very, very rough. Doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see here, it doesn't really matter if that line's not great. And then some smaller ones, and then that, and then something behind. Maybe it could be some sort of crane behind or something. Beginning to get our cityscape. We can think about foliage at the front. So I'm going to block in some of the sky. We'll do it sort of just by using a sort of hatching line behind. Block in some of the sky. Now, because I've done the sky quite dark, it might be best if I do the buildings even darker so that they pop or they stand out. So I'm basically getting rid, blocking out what's behind so that we can push it back visually when we look at it. And what's quite nice is you get these sort of areas coming through or seeping through this biro marking. Take it to the edge there. Very rough. We're just playing around. We're exploring. We're not saying this is going to be some, incredible sort of masterpiece, but just may even want to tuck that end over so it's neater, or we can just add in another building here, like that, with a roof, and then block in or block out the sky. Okay, so I'm beginning to get something going on here. Not sure about this, although I could turn this into a building. I might do that. I might turn this into a building as well, this red streak down the side. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to block out the sky behind. So I've incorporated that end bit, which I could have torn off actually, because it's going to be quite strong on the end there. But let's see what it looks like in the end, when we've started to get everything a bit more delineated. Okay, so we've got our buildings starting to look a bit sort of Amsterdam-like. And of course, these little numbers in these boxes are perfect as windows, maybe people at the windows. If you look closely, it's actually really nice, that idea of these things in the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out or delineate some of them. I'm going to do double ones on some of them. So I don't know if you can see what I've done there. I've just blocked out a window which has got 2 of those number boxes in. I mean, who'd have thought you'd be using a lottery ticket, eh? I'm going to make the windows all throughout the front of the building. I'm going to have like a dome bit at the top. Could be one of those hideous designs down by Canary Wharf. And I'm going to do the same on the other buildings, but I'm going to do, some of them are going to have longer, narrower windows. So you can see I'm just leaving a gap between each one. So now I have my picture with a darker background. I've got a brush. I'm going to get some water and I'm going to spread some of this colour. Can you see what's happening? The biro does a sort of slightly bluish colour when it is painted. So the reason I'm doing this is to sort of smooth it together a little bit. And your felt tip pens will even smudge as well. I don't know if you can see that, but they're smudging too. And it sort of just brings it all together a little bit more. Makes it feel like it belongs a bit. And I might draw into that a little bit just to get some texture in there while it's wet, and then use the brush to move that around too. Here we have a sort of Amsterdam meets, not really, not quite sure, but I quite like it. Quite pleased with it really. And you can trim off the edges a little bit. And let's see what it looks like on a slightly different coloured background. And here it is on a red background. So quite nice in the end, actually, rather lovely. I don't know what I would use that for, maybe just an illustration about cities or Amsterdam or something like that, but I'm quite pleased with the result, especially on this red. And it might even look quite nice with a sort of maybe a slightly jagged edge around here. I've just cut it a little bit off. I've cropped it in a little bit, but it might, I mean, once it's glued down as well, it'll look better. Yeah, so that's just biro, felt tip pen, bit of water, and all of it started as the lottery ticket. So I actually got some other ones as well, which were yellow with these nice stars on. So I'm going to do a sort of collage with these. I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I've got this pinky piece of paper, which is actually an old bit of wallpaper, and I've got this lottery paper. I like the orangey sort of mustardy colour with that pink. So what I did was I cut it into strips. So here's some I did earlier. And I'm going to work with these strips on this background as a sort of collage. I'm not quite sure how they'll be. And there's some paper, some print on the back of the paper too. I'm going to stick these down. Quite sure what I'm doing. I'm just enjoying it. The main thing is to go instinctively with things like this. Don't think too much. I like those stars. Stars because the bottom bit's here. So I might just do something a bit like this to begin with, just to stick them together. Oh, I found an extra piece. Right, so that will go in there. Just move them around how you want them to be. And you can even weave them together as well. That's quite interesting to actually weave things together too. But I'm going to stick these down as they are, and I'll come back to you in a second. I've stuck them down, no rhyme nor reason, just in a way that I felt was right at the time. They're not perfect, they don't line up perfect. Maybe I could just move that a bit and line it up. I've also found out that the glue's not so great on this wallpaper. The wallpaper's got a slightly shiny surface. So I might have to address that in a minute with some other glue, but at least I've got them roughly in place. And then I found this pink pen, which is really nice. And then I've still got some pinky bits left over from the other day. So I could use these pink bits, or I could use these yellow bits I've got. And I quite like the idea of playing with these shapes on top of this, so that we've got these random loose shapes that are left over. I'm not actually doing anything to them, they're just all left over. Not sure about that one. quite like them, just shapes that I've actually already created. Not so sure about that one. I think they need to be more like Miro type shapes, the artist Miro. Yeah, sort of Miro shapes, slightly organic, almost like Barbara Hepworth. So I'm just going to use these as a sort of arrangement on top, almost like musical notes on top of, I've just realised something, those are cut and these are torn. I'm going to go for cut. So I'm going to cut some sort of like Miro Matisse type shapes out. Listen, the holes are the trick, those holes are good to have in. And I'm going to put these on here somehow. It does remind me of, that's the Miro style of things floating in space. Stick these down. I'm not quite sure where this is going yet, but it doesn't matter, it's fine. I'm going to stick these down and come back to you. I've sort of moved things around a bit, stuck some down, and I feel like I want something in here with it. So I'm thinking of drawing into this. Again, I might use biro. I like the idea of creating almost like some notes or something that moves around with it. I might just start with trying with little sort of bubbles. I don't know why, but I just think little sort of shapes going around this whole thing. Without anything abstract, it really is what pleases you compositionally, what works compositionally. So what that means is how does the eye move around that piece? How do you get the balance? So here, for example, I'm not so keen on that being quite in a straight line. So I might make that a bit bigger and shift it a bit. I'm trying to get the eye to go around this. And I don't just want these circles, I want something else on this as well. So I might put in something, got circles. I might put in some lines just with the biro, just moving that around. Oops, sticking down. Just some sort of shifting things around the space. Interesting how things start to develop. It looks almost like a musical score, doesn't it? Got a feeling of something going on, like as if I'm trying to, almost like hieroglyphics, where I'm trying to describe something to you in a language that's rather mystical. Anyway, this is the beginning of something. I don't know what it is yet, but it's just fun to explore, to start to build up. It could turn into a painting, it could turn into a drawing, it could turn into an illustration. Not everything has to be absolutely finished and perfect. It's just about exploring and getting ideas going and developing something. You know, I might want to put on some pink pen, or I might want to put on some black pen, or I might want to cut this out and stick it on something else. There's so many different things I could do, but I'm just beginning to explore. And those are just the yellow lottery tickets or lottery papers, bits of post-it notes and biro. See you in the next video.